How's it going, everybody? We are here, and as you can see, it's more than just me and a guest this time. We have a panel here. So all familiar faces, I hope. We have Wyrmwalk, Jerry here. Mark Riddick, needs no introduction. Lucas, Shoggoth Kinetics, and Caroline Harrison. So all people have been on the show, and what's really neat is everybody's kind of friends with one another online. So it's great to get everybody, not in person, but at least, talking and everything. But, there's a little bit of structure within this episode, but a lot of it is just for us to hang out. And then you guys can basically tune in, and maybe you're drawing on something yourself and just listening to other artists talk while you maybe do the dishes, or maybe you're watching intently. But either case, really grateful for everybody tuning in. It's been a tad slow with the YouTube content for me just in the last couple of weeks. I've been moving, but I'm officially moved in. I got all these CDs up today, so I got a little bit of a background, but I'm just really excited for tonight. Everyone was super easy to work with, getting images and stuff. So how's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Sweaty.
Yeah.
Sweaty.
Yeah, we're talking about the heat quite a bit. So we're all on the East Coast.
Stewing, marinating.
Yeah, I was out for about 5 hours with my kids today. It was just it felt like 100 degrees plus humidity. It was awful.
So bad. Mark, where are you located at? I'm sorry, everyone.
Yeah, no problem. Northern Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So it's swampy.
That's hot. That's really hot.
Yeah. Congrats on the move, by the way, Lee. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Moving
Glad you're done with
sucks.
that. It's
Yeah.
the worst.
Oh my God, yeah. I was so stressed out with just work combined with that. It was a lot, but I'm definitely on the fun part of it now. I'm enjoying the new house and everything.
When my wife and I moved into this house, which is our second, we said we're never moving again.
Yeah, same.
Look, God, who knows what'll happen with life, but like I plan on dying here, and I'm not doing it ever again.
You look pretty subtle going off your background.
Yeah. You just accumulate more. So this is nothing. I'm jealous of your CDs, man. I used to have like 6,000. I lost, I think 90% of them in a flood in a storage unit. All my CDs I collected in the 90s.
Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah. So that's why I don't have a big vinyl collection. It's I've already spent too much. It's done.
I feel you. Well, that's one of the biggest pain in the asses to move is the CD, and vinyl's worse, frankly. Out there, but basically this is all the metal CDs, and then I have my non-metal in the main room, just for like guests and stuff. So
where
they are segregated.
Can intersect with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Not trying to scare anyone out of your apartment.
No, we used to have a goat head up, and that would do that for me, but
generally
we decided not to put that up in the house.
Yeah, I think my current art collection, this has probably got the least amount of stuff on the walls in this room, but definitely some stuff up where I'm like, what if somebody comes over that's like not cool with this sort of thing? So, but if you're ever looking for some cool stuff, Jotham Malave, Yotam Jotham, I don't know how to pronounce his name, I'm sorry. But very sick painter based in Philly.
Do you have a couple pieces?
I just have one, but it's like the newest thing that I framed and put up, and it's very upsetting, but very pretty.
Wow.
Nice.
That's what it should do, though. It should entice a reaction, right? So
yeah.
It's a good conversation piece, you know?
Yeah, he's fucking awesome. So.
Yeah, everything that Caroline picked for the show and tell section definitely got me a little bit. It's pretty intense stuff, but extremely off the beaten path, at least from what I normally am exposed to. So I was really excited about that.
Yeah, picking just 3 things, man, that was.
Don't get me started.
Well, it's either that or we're here for 6 hours.
I know.
So Lee, before you even sent the email out about how many artists, I had already worked up a list of 10, and I was really getting committed to them, and I'm like, fucking 3. What am I gonna do? I actually ended up picking completely different artists than were on my list of 10 because I couldn't narrow the 10 down.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. So I'm just I'm gonna have to start over. I have to start over.
I also cheated and messaged Lucas because I was like, Lucas and I are probably going to have the most overlap possibly. So I just want to make sure that I didn't pick any of the same people.
Right.
Well, that's why when I said anytime someone gives a list of like influential painters, I'm like, look, you could just cross off Rosetta, Boris, Ken Kelly, because that's everyone. Yeah, it's the usual suspects.
I took
Everyone loves them. Everyone knows them. So I like as Mark was saying, is really interesting to see some of the names people drop because I didn't know half of them. So I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of cool to see art that I never heard of. I tried to do the same as well. Well, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But
I mean, even if it's stuff that we've heard of, one of the things that I love about this sort of thing is seeing the individual pieces people pick too.
Facts. Yeah.
And also how we perceive the art. I mean, everybody might get a little something different out of each piece, or each artist, for that matter. So.
Yeah.
Very true.
For sure. Not. I don't even know if I properly introduced the topic, but it's kind of loose, and this is going to be in the second half. But basically, it's 3 artists. So yes, we had to narrow it down. That are, for me, it was recent inspirations, not like, and everyone can have their own interpretation, but just stuff that like really has inspired me lately. Not from like childhood and stuff, but from 1950 to roughly 2000. Now, some of these, they go more into like contemporary artists and illustrators, but I was pretty loose with it. I just wanted people to be able to authentically like say what's been inspiring them, but then not provide maybe the entire history of art just for the sake of restricting a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of like non-metal art in here, but it's all like tangential. I kind of see it as being very blurry nowadays anyways. I mean, if I go on Bandcamp and I look at album art, I mean, it's kind of all over the map nowadays, which is really cool.
Very true.
Well, the time window too was actually like a big challenge for me because a lot of my favorite people that are working are like working now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I had to double check.
Yeah.
I was like, when was this made?
Just like art historically speaking too, like because I kind of wanted to push more towards particularly like painters that I've been influenced by that aren't working as illustrators or haven't traditionally worked as illustrators. And art historically, it gets a little weird that time period because that's like a period where painting was declared dead like 5 separate times. You know what I mean? Like people weren't painting. Like Abex kind of went down in the post-war period. And people like if they tried to paint figuratively, the people just didn't have careers who were trying to do that. So it's kind of like hard not to find something that was either like a heroic return to abstract expressionism in the 80s or some of the figurism or figurative work that like came back up in the 90s. But a lot of that stuff wasn't as influential on me as kind of what happened after the turn of the century. So that was also kind of a hard cutoff for me because I was like, there's not like a ton of there's a ton of illustrators in that period that I like, but there's not a ton of painters that I really like from that period.
Yeah, well, a lot of that figurative work too was very much like, to your point, a lot of it was sort of like riffing on painting as a concept, and like if there was figurative work, you might get like the Gerhard Richter or something like that, or like big like manly painters, or like
Eric Fischl or something where he's like, I went to art school. I went to Cal Arts in the 70s, and figure painting in the 70s was covering your body with paint and jumping on a canvas. And so
don't worry, I have a little bit of that.
Yeah, so Eric Fischl, his like story is that he got his MFA and he's like, I don't know how to paint. He's like, so he tried to learn how to paint like as his career. And so his paintings, especially from the 80s, are hilariously bad, but also just like so weird in like a great way. Like they're compositionally super strange, like the positions he puts people in and stuff. And the paintings they're not quite, they're like about to fall apart because they're not very good. And so there's stuff like that, but that stuff's interesting, but it's not necessarily like something that like influences me. You know what I mean? Like I thought that was fascinating, but not,
He's also responsible for some of my like least favorite subway art in New York.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking terrible.
I don't know if anyone's been to the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh. If you're in Pittsburgh, which is an amazing
Bucket
city,
list. But
it's pretty fascinating because I didn't know a lot of Andy Warhol outside of obviously Campbell's Soup and Mao Zedong and things like that. But they have it, I think it's like 6 or 7 floors, and you start at the top floor, which is the beginning of his career, and then you work down. And I was really shocked by, and I see this with like a lot of artists, how different he was in the beginning of his career. He's a really, really good illustrator. He did some amazing ad art, which I was very just blown away by. And then you just saw this like slow kind of him finding different ways of expressing himself. And then when he got to the bottom floor, it was like really wild. I mean, it was getting out there with
on the bottom floor.
I don't remember piss paintings. I do remember a lot of videos of him as the vegetable man, and that's still a running joke with me and my wife with the vegetable man. We swear to God it was going to turn X-rated real quick. And it just had a weird vibe to it, you know. But then what was really cool was then, I guess before he died, he had gotten some kind of like really early like Apple IIgs art program and started actually doing art on like essentially Microsoft Paint, you know, in the early 90s. And I thought that was cool as an artist. It was like, well, you know, here's a guy that obviously is well known, but he's always kind of looking for, hey, this is a new way of doing something to express myself. And I just thought that was cool because he didn't have to. I mean, he was already who he was, you know what I mean? But he was like, you know, this is something new I can try. And it was actually pretty good. It was actually like it's kind of impressive.
That's cool.
Yeah, definitely recommend it.
I do think that there's a sense of inquiry, you know, being a creative person, where you do want to keep learning and challenging yourself. There's not really an end to your path of discovery, you know. It's cool to hear that because you're right. He could have paused anywhere in his career and been like, I'm just going to ride this wave and keep doing the same thing over and over again. But he chose to experiment. You know, it's great. It's a great way to expand your boundaries, you know, as a creative person.
Definitely.
I've never been to a museum, but I'll have to check it out.
Without that experimentation, we wouldn't have gotten the piss paintings.
I think I would have remembered a piss painting, but I could be wrong.
Well, it was one of those things where it's like they just look kind of like abstract paintings, but they are about sort of the chemical reaction between the pigments and like urine. So like you look at it and you're like, what the fuck is this? And then like you read the thing and you're like,
okay, yeah,
they're like on like sheets of copper or something like that, right? And it's just like the ammonia in your piss reacts with the copper and makes like a weird like a weird patina effect. Basically.
And like
it's kind of just like how did it get there? There's like I wonder what happens if I piss on it.
Well, Warhol's one of those people where like I've never honestly been a huge fan of Warhol, but like that was a point at which I was like, you know what, you're meeting me on my level right now.
I like that artist challenges our inquiry of what is art, what constitutes art, and I feel like in some ways art can just be a philosophical perspective coming from one person, an individual, you know. And I find that fascinating when an artist is willing to push the envelope or test the boundaries of what's considered art. It really begs the question: well, what really is it? You know, is it just self-expression? Where are the boundaries? You know, and are there?
And Warhol was always really good at that, insofar as like he was really sort of looking at art versus like commercial reproduction versus like art as commerce, which is actually part of why I have very mixed feelings about him as an artist. But like, but to like he's absolutely perfectly doing what Mark's describing. So, you know, love him or hate him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's like. Warhol is like Duchamp too.
Yes, exactly.
So I would say like everything we're doing is a response to Duchamp. Like we're all living in Duchamp's shadow. Yeah. I think Warhol is probably one of those artists that's like that. We're all kind of living in the world, the post, world that they kind of created. Yeah.
Yeah. Warhol and Duchamp, I personally credit with spawning like 1,000 asshole, like terrible artists.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
I place the blame squarely at their feet. Like.
Oh yes.
I don't know. Salvador Dali was a fascist too. Pretty open about it as well. So
yeah, no, I mean as far as like the art that they were creating. If we're talking about politics, boy, howdy. You can go down a long
exactly. Yeah. No, fair enough.
We'll get there though. I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think probably all three of my picks kind of touch a little bit.
I just personally just feel like the basic bitch over here. I'm like, I remember Duchamp a little bit in art history.
Ready-made. That's the word.
Ready-made.
I remember that when he was really technically good too, before he started doing more heady kind of works as well, which I think is really cool that he had immense skill and then kind of, devolved in a way. At least that's how I perceive it,
Yeah, I'll shit on Duchamp like at the drop of a hat. Like I won't mince words about that. But there is a piece at the PMA, the Philadelphia Art Museum, that I think is really awesome. That's like a little window that you look into, and it's like a little diorama. It's very cool.
I've seen that before, not in person, but I've heard about that. Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about ourselves briefly. Just kind of like what's kind of going on in your world. For a lot of you guys, it's been a few months. And, like Lucas, for instance, I pulled some of your art, but just like what's been new with you like the last couple months? What have you been working on mostly?
Well, it's been since January. I kind of was thinking ahead of like a few things to maybe talk about really, really briefly. One thing that's been like a weird development this year that it was not like planned, and I'm kind of still figuring out how to respond to it, is I for some reason I seem to have moved from being primarily a t-shirt guy to primarily being an album cover guy.
That's the progression. That's usually how it works.
So I didn't really plan for that. And so it's been like I've done, I already do a few album covers a year, but this year I've done maybe 3 shirts, and every single commission I've done since January, other than that, has been an album cover. I'm working on 4 of right now.
Nice.
So, so it's been quite a change. So it's just like, it's been weird for my calendar because I've tried to be as generous as I can with like my slots, but even so, I find myself kind of getting behind no matter what. So that's been kind of a change for me.
Just working. Take longer. They take you longer to do, right? Album covers versus like a t-shirt. Yeah. Same.
It's more real estate, and like the concept generation phase just lasts a lot longer with clients because we go through ideation, come up with some ideas, try to get the client to agree to something, and once they agree to that, then it's like I try to like do some refinement sketches to kind of work out the composition a little bit more, so that takes a little bit longer. If it's like an oil painting, because I'm doing 2 oil paintings right now, and they're like the first ones I've done this year. I haven't done an oil painting since last year, and I've decided I kind of don't like the way that I've started oil paintings. Like I was trained as my oil painting. I was trained by figurative painters in Detroit that primarily focus on like starting loose and blocking in broadly and stuff. And I'm starting to find that for illustrative paintings, it does not work as a way to start a painting. So this year, for these paintings, I'm like, well, I'm gonna lay a pencil drawing out, which I've never done before, and I'm gonna have to fix it. I'm gonna have to fix the pencil drawing down, then put a tone ground over top of it before I start painting. And now I'm like, well, I'm going that far, I may as well do a bunch of digital color studies before I decide what I'm actually going to do. So there's like, I've been working on these paintings for 2 weeks. I have not, other than putting a tone ground in them, I have not laid a single brush stroke on these paintings yet because I've just been doing prep work. It's just been prep work. So that's a little different. It's been a little different. I started watercoloring a lot this year too. Like,
the devil.
I love it.
I like it, but like, man, you are a masochist. That is.
Yeah. I compared to oil painting, I actually like it because the cleanup is just. Because that's the thing I hate about oil painting is cleanup. I just can't stand the cleanup. It takes so freaking long to clean everything up. It's about like if I work for 3 hours on a painting till it starts to get tacky, it's still gonna take me like 45 minutes to. It's like almost a third of the time I spent painting.
Yeah.
Again, spent on cleanup. So
are you doing it indoors, or how are you? What's your setup for oil painting? Yeah.
Just
in that third floor that's cooking.
My third floor that's cooking. Yep. I can't take that down to the kitchen. I got to work. Yeah.
We got to.
I've got an easel. I've got a big glass palette on my painting table. I use what I was taught to use when I went to grad school was Winsor Newton Liquin, which is an alkyd resin medium.
Don't leave the cap off of that.
Oh no, never leave the cap off of that stuff. It's bad.
Not good for
it's
your
not
brain.
as bad. It's like you should never be painting with turpentine, and turpenoid is not much better. But at least like this, like it speeds the dry time up on the paintings. It helps with the. It's like a medium, so it helps you kind of move the paint around. So that's basically what I do. Like I get my paints mixed. I mix in my medium. I start painting for however long. Liquid does start to tack up, like depending on how hot it is or depending on how humid it is, it does start to tack up maybe 3-4 hours in where you can't really paint on it anymore. You're just going to start pulling paint off. So that's about as much time as I can usually get in on a painting a day. And I usually like to give it like 24 hours to dry before I hit it with another layer. I am thinking about getting into acrylic this year. I'm actually thinking that these might be my last oil paintings. Cause I'm just sort of sick of the cleanup, but it's not something I'm going to try on a commission. Like I'm going to have to mess around with it. And it's just like another investment. Like people ask me why I paint in oil and I'm like, because I have all the stuff.
Because you have the paints.
I already have it. Like I don't have to buy anything. I've got all this shit from grad school. I got a grant in grad school that I'm still coasting on. Like I still have stuff I bought. I still have stuff I bought in 2014 that I'm still using, so.
Well, because for acrylics, you have to buy all new brushes and stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. Like oil's hard on your brushes.
It's expensive.
It's expensive. We'll say, and the only real thing you get from oil paint is that it looks gorgeous in person, and a lot of it doesn't really translate in scans or photographs anyway. That lucent quality of the paint, that luminous quality of the paint, it's great when you see it in a gallery, but it doesn't really pick up on a scanner or in a photo. So
yeah, how are you documenting your finished paintings?
I scan them.
Okay.
I do the awful scan it in 4 pieces, stitch it together.
Whatever. That's how I'm.
Yeah.
Ain't got time for anything else, man.
Yeah, it's just like scan it at night, so there's no daylight in my studio, so that I don't have to do as much color correcting. That's about it. That's about as.
I go to FedEx office and look weird as shit.
Do they have a pretty big scanner there?
No.
No, it's still really tiny. Yeah.
I got to scan it into like 5 different pieces and use Photoshop to get it together, and then want to kill myself. Yeah.
But that automate function.
That automate function is gold.
Yeah, healing brush. So I guess the only other thing is, since we last talked, Lee, the tabletop RPG book that I've worked on primarily over the last couple of years, the Kickstarter had launched in March.
Nice.
And that was kind of a big thing because it closed out at like $1.3 million in Kickstarter.
This is some work from it, right?
So good.
Those pieces. So it's the book of Shadow Dark. Actually, the first piece that I did for it was actually 4 years ago. Kelsey Dion, who does the Arcane Library, she's primarily worked as a writer for like D&D supplementary campaign stuff. She decided a couple years ago she's always wanted to write her own manual, so she started writing it maybe 3 years ago, but she commissioned a piece for me for quite a while back, and that turned into the cover. So we worked on that pretty steadily for the last 2 years in particular. Like we went through a pretty long design process, like character design process for the characters in the book. She wanted any image that featured like the party to be the same party in every single one. She had some backstory and names for them. So we went through this long character design process and came up with these characters. And so yeah, it was kind of a big thing that the funding goal was like $10,000, and it blew past 200,000 in the first day.
Congratulations, man! That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. I'm like excited about that. It's supposed to ship later this summer, and obviously they got a lot more orders than they were originally planning. So she's got like multiple printing houses that are now printing this book up, and it's made more than the 1.3 million because she had to use a platform called Backstarter because people were requesting to increase their pledges after the fact, and Kickstarter doesn't let you do that. And then she ended up opening the Kickstarter back up too, like later in April. So it's been open for quite a while too. So it's made more than what it closed on at the end of March. So it was kind of cool. Like she got written up in Forbes. My artwork was like the page header and a little article.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
dude, cool.
Which is not something I ever expected to see. Not like a place I ever expected to see.
Sellout over here.
That's crazy, man.
Lucas is too corporate for us now, man.
Yeah, no. I think Mark, you had a couple questions. I heard you.
Oh, no, I was talking to happened to be talking to Phantom Slaughter on the phone earlier. He mentioned that Brad Moore goes to Staples to get his paintings scanned. I don't know if they have a larger format
Really?
capability there. Anyway, might be worth trying that. I don't know. Yeah, I can't remember what my other point was.
I think you asked earlier, just like, do you like doing the album covers over the
Oh,
T-shirt?
Yeah, Lucas, do you have a preference between, I mean, would you prefer to just do shirts all day versus an album cover, or do you like what you're doing right now?
Lucas, you're on mute.
You're on mute. Yeah, you go, bud.
Or you can't hear
Yeah,
it?
no, sorry. Like your guys' audio is getting really, really weird on my computer, so I'm trying to see if there's some kind of setting I can fix.
Uh-oh.
You're good. I'm going to pop the question in the chat.
Oh, thanks.
I think it would be hilarious if you could just
Yeah,
pretend to not
give me a
hear
second.
you the
Give me a
entire
second.
time.
I'm gonna
Sorry, I also should
give me a
have
second.
muted
I'm gonna
all
drop
this.
out for a second and like try to restart my browser. I don't know if my browser is just getting slow. So hang on one second.
No problem.
Lucas is making me think I should close the 9,000 tabs that I have open.
Nah, keep them going.
I got to keep my notes open. That's it.
Of course.
Yeah.
All those.
Goes back. What about you, Caroline? What's new in your world?
I always draw a blank when people ask me that question, so I'm glad that you asked me in advance. I don't know. It's been like a weird year because I like last year just kind of got super burnt out. So I'm trying to like figure out how to kind of get moving again. But I had a show in Chicago in March that was really fun. I got to meet Dan Seagrave and hang out.
Oh, nice. Congrats on that.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was this place called Public Works Gallery. It was like a group show organized by this guy, Scott Schellhammer, who's also a killer artist. And that was really fun. Done a couple of shirts, have a couple of things back burnering, and I made some space for personal work later this year. Like that's actually going to happen. But yeah. And then just been figure drawing also, which has been really nice. Because
I've loved seeing those personally.
Play for once, which is really fun. So
I want to pop up just a couple of those. So the Ken Mode album is going to be out soon, and you did a supplemental illustration for them, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that's been a fun one because I did this for the last album that they put out as well, where they asked me about reinterpreting Randy's cover kind of in my own style for a shirt. So, but yeah, there's a new single for that one out too. And yeah, the thing on the right was kind of silly, but basically Sky Burial, the Inner Arma record, turned 10. And I was talking to one of them and he was like, oh, do you know anybody who could do like a fake logo that's like our logo, like the Morbid Angel logo? But I was like, you're baiting me right now. Like there's no other reason you would be mentioning this. And then I was like, what if I also did the Altars of Madness cover, but stupid?
How did did Dan do that one? Did you
Yeah, actually. So
Nice.
Dan Seagraves saw this and he was very sweet about it. But I definitely was like, I'm really sorry, Dan. And he was like, are you kidding? It's great. Like, I love this.
Oh.
So he was very nice about that. But I definitely was kind of tempting fate with that one. So we got the blessing from Dan. But yeah.
You had this Art and Blood of God zine, right?
Yeah. That guy is really
Such
cool.
a good piece.
Thank you. Yeah, he just kind of like, he's got a kind of interesting thing going. So if nobody out there is familiar, Blood of Gods is sick. Yeah, Mark's. Oh, that's the one. I think.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's like a wine and a heavy metal zine, which sounds like a strange thing, but he gets different artists for it every time, and it's like always a really, really lovely mix of folks. So this is my first one. But yeah, it was really fun. I know I don't. Ellie Jo Livingston is another artist who she did like the back inset illustration. So it was really fun to like bookend it.
Yeah, I was in the first one. I was in the first
one. Yeah, that's the thing.
Actually,
is like, I think Stacy's like picking out just like fucking. He's going through everybody. It's awesome.
Yeah. So they made crazy thing is they made they made
nice
like flocked velvet prints of the piece that I did.
Oh, wow.
Shut the fuck up. That's so fun.
So I have a couple of those, and then he just got in touch with me, told me they made hologram prints of the piece that I did. So he's like, "Can I send you a couple?" So I'm definitely posting those when they show up at my door because they're they look fucking sick.
So
Hell
good.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Freaking
But yeah, so plugging Blood of Gods, like it's all the back issues are like up and available. He's always got some like cool stuff going. I think he's got like a fest happening this month, I want to say, if it hasn't happened already. I don't know what time is anymore. So but yeah.
Can I just say one thing about that first off, all of these are amazing. But that one that's right there in the middle, the fact that it's literally hands and feet, which is what I try not to paint at every single point in my life. I would have hidden half that behind a rock, and the fact that you have it right there is amazing. I'm saying that in all seriousness. This is really impressive. Seriously.
Well, I find like hands are very expressive in a way that like you can get a lot of emotion out of hands that you can also get out of a face. But I think like we focus so heavily on faces when we see them in pieces that like it's kind of fun to just remove that.
True.
Well, I think if I remember correctly, did you show process of that piece on your social media?
Yeah, somewhere.
I remember seeing
yeah.
It's just crazy to me, like how it looked great already. I think if I recall correctly, I thought I saw like it in like different steps like of development, and just the color alone is just so good. The coloring, I feel like the coloring would be the hardest part to tackle on that, and you just I don't know. It's just so well executed.
Thank you so much. I blundered into that. Color is very hard. So it's
You're
been
very
really
good
fun.
at it.
It's been really fun to like try and push color into stuff because it's not my comfort zone. So I'm trying to like make it happen. Going back to the concept of shoving hands and feet into stuff.
You know, I mean, I'm with Jerry. If you can hide some of that stuff,
all the time. And I say it all the time, and I think I even mentioned in my first interview with Lee, I'm a huge defender of Rob Liefeld, just because people gave him decades of every hand is like this and the feet are always hidden. I'm like, you draw them. You do a 22-page comic book with hands and feet. You're going to be hiding them behind. Everyone is going to be grabbing something and everyone's sitting down.
And like six times as many abdominal muscles as like.
Well, look, I mean, that's easier to do. I just had pockets on everything. And
don't forget pouches.
Pouches, of course.
Like
so I'm always impressed when I especially feet. It's like, oh my god.
Oh no, feet are the worst. They're so hard to draw.
Hard. So difficult. Yeah.
Speaking of feet, Jerry, what's new with your world?
my feet. Let's talk about them. It's like everyone else. It's always weird talking about yourself. Same old stuff. Luke's talking about his schedule. Same with Caroline. I mean, I'm never caught up. I'm always behind. I always think I'll get something done by some time, but and this is going to sound really pretentious, but like as I get better, what I can paint becomes more complicated and becomes more time consuming, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like a good problem. And then on top, with all of that wrapped around, agreed to do a comic book with a couple of people,
awesome.
three writers. One of them is the singer for High Command. Kevin, and 2 other people, and we've been working on it. They have a great script. It's 8 issues, 32 pages per issue, which is, And what the funny part is, when they came to me, I mean, like, I love comics. I talk about comics all the time. I got comics tattooed all over me and stuff like that, but like I can't do them very well, So it's been a process. So I've got to get like 20 pages done in a month, which is, I guess it's okay. I'll get it done. But it's it's a learning process. It really is, because I have such an affinity towards the work, and I always say, and I'm sure Mark knows this, but I always joke with those that know Patrick Karmazid. I always say that doing black and white ink work to me is so much more difficult than painting, because everything has to be so precise. You don't have a lot of color to blend things in. I would rather paint something 1,000 times over than have to draw it out. And to me, it's just so much harder. But it's a pretty cool experience, because again, I love comic books, and so it's a different side of my brain. But besides that, bunch of album covers, and I'm late on a lot of them, but I'm trying. I'm trying,
So kind, yeah.
I'm getting there, Oh God!
There's a thing piece on the left, right, for Frozen Soul. It was for the anniversary of the movie. Am I mistaken there?
I mean, look, as maybe this is revealing, a little bit behind the curtain for all those who aren't, professional artists. I mean, I paint things and then they pop up a year later. I painted that thing piece, I think, a year ago, and we were actually. I've been working with Frozen Soul for like 3 years now. I know Chad very well. And we have like 1,000 ideas, and like maybe 2 of them come to fruition. So his original idea was to do a whole series of thing pieces, and then that, I did one, and then we started doing other things. But this is just fun because I love John Carpenter, and everyone knows Spiderhead Dude. You know what I mean? So,
This on the left is related to the fest they put on, right?
Yeah, so every year they put on Wrecking Ball Metal Madness, and it actually started out during the height of the pandemic. They videotaped it and did some really cool, like, old school slasher stuff. And as when we talk about the different artists, I'm just a massive fan of 80s and 90s horror album art. And so so we did more of those. And this time it's taking place on Halloween. That's why he's got a pumpkin face. You know what I mean? So that's why. It wasn't just because let's paint a pumpkin. And then that one, that was for Creature Skateboards. That also has an interesting story as well. That one was painted like 2 years ago and came out a couple months ago. It got passed around by a few skateboarders. The name up there had changed a few times. Let's put it that way. But again, that's part of the business. You know what I mean? You paint stuff. Sometimes you see it. Sometimes you never do. I mean,
What's the crazy tangled stuff running through it?
Well, the main piece
my screen is small. So.
Oh no, the main piece, just because it's a skateboard painting, so it's long, and the other parts are just zoomed in. Those are just tangled worms.
They look very sick. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. I've done 3 skateboards for Creature, and they all have those tangled worms in them. Yeah. And they're kind of easy to do, and I think that's why they appear. But they seem to like it, so
That's awesome.
Funny. It's funny, Jerry, hearing you like talk about, because I didn't know this was a skateboard design, and so I'm going to be totally art school for a second here and be like,
sure.
I'm actually really responding to that format with like the 2. Like, I actually like the way that looks. I thought that was just like a sick, like, way to design an album cover. And I'm like, man, I wish I had done that, something like that with an album cover. Knowing it's not, I'm like, well,
that's just Instagram posting.
It just it looks cool like that. Honestly, I like that format.
It bodes well for the comic book too, because it's like a panel format. But I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. I'm with it. Yeah. If you dig it that way, that's cool. I'm glad. Yeah.
Jerry, the comic book that you're working on, are Is the interior printing going to be black and white? Is that what?
No. That's the other thing. I'm a bit of a control freak. So I also agreed to do the coloring as well.
Okay.
Which
Is that the same duration of time you have?
no. We're yeah.
So I'm already like pinching my stress headache just hearing you talk.
Well, you have a full-time job as well, Jerry.
And 2 kids, and I don't have a social life, but that's okay.
And now you won't. Like,
well, it doesn't exist. I'm 41 years old. Forget it. There is no such thing as a social life. It's off-putting when people talk about, do you want to do something? No. But no. In all actuality, we just have to get the penciling done by that point, and I'm not the biggest fan of that because once I pencil something, I want to ink it. Because not every single thing that I'm doing ink-wise is going to be penciled. You kind of, like painting, you kind of figure some things out. But, we have to get certain things done by a certain time. But that's also learning to, like, digitally color a comic book like Dave Stewart, which, by the way, is extremely difficult. But I didn't do the lettering. I said, look, I'm not doing lettering. So, they found someone else to do that. It'll get all done.
Is there
It's good you have boundaries,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any. Yeah. Sorry, what was that, Mark?
No, I was just going to ask if you guys had a publisher already lined up.
That side of it, I've graciously left it to them. They have, I think they're looking at places like Dark Horse, maybe Black Mask. They're not really going anywhere, I think, major. I know the last I heard, and I don't know if this is still going, but I think possibly Florian has agreed to do the covers, which they did that to like get me on board. They're like, maybe they'll help you. I'm like, that scares the crap out of me because he's freaking amazing, and I'm just an old economist that just draw stuff and paint stuff, and I got his stuff all over because I love his stuff. But no, we don't have a publisher yet. I think we got like the first 12 pages penciled, inked, and colored, and they have their whole write up and things like that they're ready to they're sending off to people, and in between there, I'm just rushing to get pages done. As fast as I can, So that's my life. Yeah, and then of course, it's the summer, so I only have a summer course. But then when the fall starts up, I teach as well. So there's all that.
Yeah.
It's what it is. That's life.
See, I was just talking with my sister. She's a toxicologist, and she teaches full time, and so she's at that point where it's like midsummer. She's like, I don't want to start prepping for the fall yet, but I know that if I don't, I will feel behind when August rolls around.
It's facts.
So yeah,
I won't though.
You won't.
No one preps. Don't listen to them. I've taught most of these classes. I've been teaching for almost 2 decades now. I don't know.
I mean, when I taught at Notre Dame, I did have to start prepping my studio classes.
That's a little bit different because that's different. Mine's purely lecture. I'm.
Yeah, I had to start calling people to come in to pose for my figure drawing class.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different animal.
Yeah,
it's much different.
If I started prepping for the fall in August, I was gonna be behind.
August. It's more like about 3 days before the semester starts. Is when it's like, all right, I probably have to get this stuff done. I got to figure this out. If you haven't noticed, I'm a huge procrastinator. Yeah.
You're in good company there.
Yeah, that's what I figured. This is nothing new to anyone here.
Yeah, we're in the procrastination station right here.
Yeah, of course. Come on now. Nothing, but everything gets done, or it doesn't. And, figure it out anyway.
All right, I think I'm up, so I'll just talk briefly. So for me, with the move and everything, I've been doing a lot of sketchbook stuff, so I've just been trying to fill that up as much as possible. I've been getting really into comic books as well. Not to create one, that's not even in my head at all, just like basically, I was born in 91 and the comics bubble kind of burst around like 95. So my exposure to comics was like, I actually got into some of the like Jack Kirby stuff from like my dad, but a lot of that stuff in the 90s when it was like really big with like Jim Lee and Image and all that, like I'm kind of catching up to all that, but it's been very inspirational to me recently. I've been really into this YouTube channel called Cartoonist Kayfabe, which is just really awesome, like comic book related content, kind of like podcast style. And another YouTube channel that I've been really enjoying as well is Nate Garrett of Spirit Adrift started one recently, and he's just been talking about tour stories and stuff, and just really cool hearing him talk about stuff. But in terms of art, I've been very inspired by comics, especially stuff like Mobius, Drouet. I have been interested in, I do like, Jim Lee and McFarlane quite a bit. I've been getting into that. And then Bernie Wrightson, of course. I love stuff that has really strong light and shadow. So I've been playing around with those concepts a lot. And then I just did a painting recently. It's pretty tiny, but it was just like a homage to the Cryptopsy album. I just kind of reimagined it with some more vivid colors and stuff. Cool. And I also realized that my next color scheme needs to not be predominantly purple and blue and orange. So in my bottom right corner, I have some color studies for a larger piece I'm working on. Nice. I'm going to go with the one on the left. It's a little more like a sickly kind of psychedelic color, but I think it'll come out pretty nice. Another thing is I recently bought an airbrush because I want to get good at having like flat tones that don't have any brush strokes, just if I want to have that effect. Okay. And airbrush is pretty fucking hard, so I've been trying to figure that out, and I'm
big in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to do stuff that's very retro in my own way, and not really trying to adopt digital anytime soon. Not that I have anything opposed to it. It's just I've decided that I want to go that direction. But yeah,
Lee, that one on the left is giving like major William Blake color schemes, and like I'm very here for it.
Thanks.
It looks super cool.
Big time. I thought it was an homage to Sepultura.
Yeah, I realized that it actually looks more like that after
No, I mean, when you first posted, I was like, oh man, I've mentioned it before. It's my favorite album cover of all time. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of like a Rise. And then you're like, yeah, Cryptopsy. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I see that too. But that was the first thing that came to my head. No, I think it's great. I love it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, I think the Cryptopsy cover may have been a French artist or something had done it. Not widely published, I don't think. But,
yeah.
Dude, your studies look amazing too. You're black and you're just mentioning the heavy shadows and lighting and stuff. I can see that in your sketchbook pieces. It's really good.
Yeah, just that's kind of what I really had the time and energy for with the move. I mean, so much of it is just like it's hard to work on a big piece in the middle of the move. So just I've been studying Loomis, a lot of that classic illustration stuff just to get my chops up to where I want them to be, which is a never-ending fight,
Did Loomis do that famous figure drawing book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
I have a couple of his books. This is one I'm studying right now, drawing the head and hands.
Yeah, because there's a drawing the figure one that I think that he did that just like everybody looks like a beautiful like 1940s, 1950s like pinup model in or like Clark Kent. Like they're very like of a time, but they all just look stunning.
Yeah, really I mean, I am studying that stuff, so maybe that's what my stuff will look like. But I think he just has a really good way of explaining stuff, and I don't know. It's kind of nice to have, for me at least, like a standard to work off of. So he kind of provides that for me, where so many other people have like different styles. And if you want like kind of the most distilled down, like almost non-style to then learn from, he does a really good job at that, in my opinion. Not that he doesn't have style, it's just that's kind of how I take it.
One of my favorite comic illustrators for light, well, two I'll say. One is Frank Miller. Say what you want about the guy personally.
I'm reading some Frank Miller right now too.
I mean, his artwork for Sin City is absolutely incredible, especially the first 3 books. But also Dave Gibbons. Now, most people know Dave Gibbons because he did Watchmen. But if you can grab a hold of the stuff they did in 2000 AD, particularly Rogue Trooper, it's mind-blowing, incredible, because it was all black and white. But the light to dark of a sci-fi war tale is really, really good. It's really, really good. I highly recommend it. Yeah, if you can get a hold of it. You know, it's hard to at this point, but yeah, his stuff is amazing. If you can get the Watchmen uncolorized version. I think they call it Watchmen Noir. I think I have it back there. It's
I have the normal one.
Yeah, if they. Sorry.
It was bound to happen. Somebody was
right on standby though.
Yeah, but it's just amazing because his art is so good as it is, and nothing against the colors itself.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
But it's
about
just
this.
amazing.
Because there's that one chapter in the original Watchmen that's like a visual palindrome. I'm trying to remember. One of the Rorschach chapters is a visual palindrome where like the whole thing.
It's a big book. I don't know if I could find it on the fly. You know what I mean?
My comics shelf is in the next room, so you're
Don't let us down, Jerry.
If you give me a page number, I'll find it. But again, like here's him on Mars, and it's not that the colors the coloring was bad, but I mean, his just pure artwork.
Instructive. Yeah. You can see it in a whole different way.
Totally. And it's a great book. So I mean, there's also
very cool.
Yeah.
Is anybody?
It's Fearful Symmetry.
That's
and it's a palindrome. Because.
Well, now you put me on the spot. I mean,
it's symmetrical. That's fine. I just Googled it. You're good. I'm cheating. So.
I was just curious, like, have any of you guys messed around with like airbrush at all? As like an effect?
No, I honestly, that's something that one of the reasons I kind of have been thinking about getting into acrylic. I have an airbrush that my partner may have lifted from her employer. It's an old one from the 70s, though. It's something they were getting rid of. But I don't have a compressor for it, and you can't use oil paints with, really. Even if you use like the thinnest thinning medium, it's probably going to gum up. So I've been thinking about like airbrush as another thing to try once again, like not on a commission. It's going to have some time to actually mess around with it. But yeah, I've been sort of interested, like, intrigued by it as a potential, another process, but I have not.
Whoever does airbrush, can you please document the process? Because I am very curious now.
Well, I have a colleague from when I taught at Notre Dame who uses a lot of airbrush stuff in his work. Jason Lair, he does a lot of stenciling, so he does a lot of airbrushing acrylic onto the stencils. Okay. So I guess if I have any questions, I could always ask him.
Have you talked to Skinner?
Oh no,
he's on my list for guests. I haven't reached out to him yet, but he's a big influence on me. But
great dude. He uses a lot of airbrush. I love his process. I told him I don't know how the hell he does it. He airbrushes all the color and then does the ink right over it. It's amazing stuff. Yeah.
Get him to do a demo, Lee. Get him to do.
Yeah,
demo.
I mean, he'll do it if you ask him. He'll probably do it.
I know. I need to reach out to him. I'm a little intimidated with him because he actually
really
is. Well, no.
With Skinner?
No, I know he's a nice guy. It's not that. It's more like.
I feel like I'm putting Skinner on the spot now.
He was one of my heroes, like as I was. Coming up more, so him. And Seagrave, I'm intimidated by, but I'll be fine, man. I'm good. But yeah,
it's cool. If I can carry a conversation with Dan Seagrave, you'll do fine.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if he'll accept. But
who's Skinner?
Airbrush is the.
I'll talk. I'll send him a text. Answer you back.
Hey man, we'll talk. The thing with airbrush is like there is some instruction on YouTube, but so much of it is like here's airbrush if you want to do a piece completely in airbrush, and that's like not my vision. For me, it's like you do a flat layer and then you build on it with gouache and color pencil and stuff like that. Like kind of like how a lot of like like Drew Struzan and people like that used to do in like the 70s and 80s. It's a little harder to find that instruction, I'm finding. So
It's kind of wild because a lot of people don't know that Derek Riggs was a primarily airbrush painter.
Yeah.
All the Iron Maiden stuff was airbrush.
That
Marillion,
makes a lot
all
of
that
sense,
stuff.
though.
Yeah, and so was Mark Wilkinson, who did the Marillion album covers. He was all airbrush as well. One of the funniest stories, if you read Derek Riggs's book, was when he had a very interesting relationship with Maiden. I don't think they liked each other very much, but they understood the relationship. And they when they did Power Slave, they were in Bermuda or Bahamas, and he's like, they all of a sudden said they wanted me to do the album cover there, so they flew me out to the Bahamas. But apparently the moisture in the air didn't work well with the airbrush, so he's like, I'm there for a week and I got shit done because it sucks. So he's like, I just went home. He's like, it's not like they were hanging out with me. I was just in the Bahamas pulling my hair out because this wasn't working. I'll just go home and get this done. But yeah, I was shocked when I found that out, that he was all predominantly airbrush. It's tough. It's tough to do.
Cool. And Mark, what's new with your world? Talk about a busy guy. You got a million things going on.
Yeah, too many. Oh yes.
Hell yeah.
Yes, everyone's dream. The fucking magic cards.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so cool.
That's so it's available now. There's a secret layer. I guess it's sort of like this print on demand kind of concept that Wizards of the Coast is doing with Magic the Gathering, where they do these kind of like off the beaten path kind of cards or artists. And there's a new one out. It's called Death is Temporary, Metal is Forever, is what they titled it. And so it's just a series of 5 cards I illustrated for Secret Layer drop, and that's out now. It's for their summer drop, and I guess it's open for purchase for like 2.5 months or something like that. So they're doing it. They used to do it like every couple of weeks. They do one of these and only make it available for a couple of weeks, but now they're doing it by season. So this is the summer drop. It was fun.
It's incredible work, man. This is absolutely incredible work.
Thanks. I've never played the game, so I don't know a whole lot about it. But working with them has been a real sincere pleasure. They give me a lot of creative freedom, which is cool to interpret, their world. So it's fun. It's a good commission for sure.
So you're underselling it a bit, Mark. If I'm gonna be honest,
he does.
I'm an avid tabletop gamer, and I don't like Magic at all, but I've played it. It's a really big fucking deal to work for WotC and to have any cards in Magic. This is pretty awesome.
From what I understand, too, having a single artist do this many cards for like a secret thing is very unusual.
Big deal.
The only reason I know about this is because somebody else. It was just very cool to see somebody else that I knew do like a secret layer drop, and my friend who like does play Magic was like, that like one artist doesn't usually do this many cards, right? So like it's a big fucking deal.
That's cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it's funny. The dude Tom Gencott, the art director I worked with over there, he's a metalhead, so we'd pass along music recommendations to each other too on occasion. So it's just cool to be able to like. That's the thing. Like a lot of people don't see the middlemen that you work with, and a lot of them happen to just be metalheads too. Which is awesome. So yeah, they're always like a lot of fun to work with. It's just cool, and it's cool to see people. I did a card signing a couple months ago, and it was just cool to see people get excited about it, and they're so passionate about that game. It has a legacy behind it. It's just really interesting. It's like somebody opening a new world for me. I that I haven't seen before. Just like another group of very passionate people who are really focused on this this tabletop, if you will. It's just fascinating to me.
Well, and the people who play Magic are like so about the art on the cards too. So that's like a huge component of
Yeah,
the game.
no, it's definitely. I was definitely flattered when they reached out, a couple of years ago. Actually, this thing I think I illustrated last summer. It set about a year before it published. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, well, you know how that goes. Same with album covers, the same
Yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah.
Final pressing plants being delayed.
Mark, do you happen to have
It's
any
really funny
of the?
because it's really funny because a friend of mine from grad school literally texted me the link to the drop for these cards with the text message. He's like, "I think I'm going to have to get back into Magic the Gathering."
Awesome.
I don't think he knows that I know you. I think he just was like, "I fucking love the artwork on these." So it's like out there. It's like way out there.
Yeah, well, it's awesome too because at this point, I've also been able to just see Magic pick up these artists that are fucking
Matt Sticker and
Matt Sticker.
Yeah,
Sticker was there. Kamasa was there. Yeah, he did.
Jeannie D'Angelo, who's Everlasting Faint, did a whole weird, awesome set of Zodiac stuff. So it's Lauren YS has done a few.
Right?
James Buscema has got some coming out.
And Justin Jones has done a bunch of stuff for them too. Teen Witch.
Oh,
shit,
really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Awesome.
She's done a ton of dragon stuff. She's always posting artist proofs and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Okay, no, I have seen these. They're fucking awesome.
Yeah, no, her stuff's fucking sweet. She just did this sick Heller drawing
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of an odd story that maybe when this is all over, I'll go in more detail when it's off camera. But right before the pandemic, I was actually flown out to Seattle to interview for the principal economist position for Magic.
Wait, they have a what?
A principal economist position.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it didn't work out, and it was the interview was something. Let's put it that way.
They need a different title, though. If you're going to be a principal economist for wizards,
you should have something else. Yeah,
they need a flashier title for that.
I did adjust my resume when I sent it there with a lot of D&D lingo, and that did attract them. That did. But again, off camera, some interesting things happened. But anyway,
yeah, Mark, these are fucking sick.
Should be
these are awesome. These are absolutely insane, especially that Wheel of Misfortune.
No, I'd love
super cool.
I mean that's incredible. That reminds me of, again, talk about Seagraves, early '90s.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny you mentioned Seagrave though. He actually just finished a painting for one of my bands.
Is that right?
Yeah, it'll come out at some point. We need to find a label to put it out. But I mean, Seagrave's on the cover.
That's awesome.
He did a phenomenal job. Anyhow, that's a side note. But
is that related to this thing on the right here?
No, it's a different. Yeah, it's a band called Macabre. Dan Seagrave actually painted our previous album cover. That album came out about 8 years ago or something. So we have a new one that we kind of worked on during the pandemic on and off. But yeah, the Fetid Zombie is a new EP. It's just a couple tracks that it's gonna come out this summer or fall. I already have I got the cassettes already. They're already done.
Nice.
It's just a cassette, and then the shirt, Pyropress already ran the shirt.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
Oh, they do such a killer job printing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I like that back print.
Yeah, I'm just got a little sleeve hit too. So that'll be out. It's got a lot of guest musicians from different bands and stuff participating on it. It's just really straightforward. It's not like the last full length I did was more experimental. This one's just more just bare bones death metal. It's nothing over the top or anything.
Meat and potatoes death metal.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it's got some a lot of dudes doing really cool guitar solos and stuff on it, which kind of helps it a little bit. But it's pretty straightforward for the most part. So that'll come out soon through the Bandcamp, and then Spencer's retail. Spencer's is going to start carrying Riddick branded products. So that'll come out, I think, this month or next month, and that's just a sample of one of the products that'll be on the in store, available in store.
That's awesome.
Very cool, man.
And that's about it. Otherwise, like last night, I finished a bunch of stuff for Lip Service, which is like an old like hard rock goth kind of fashion brand from the 80s. Finished a bunch of stuff for them last night, and this week I'm trying to wrap up some stuff for Holder, some merch for her. So,
Nice.
and a couple other things on the list.
And you did the Terminal Nation Pabst Blue Ribbon shirt.
Yeah, I think that just came out a couple days ago.
Yeah. That's all. It was really, really awesome, dude.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah,
it's busy, man. It's just like you guys were saying. You're always behind. And that's always trying to keep your head above water. And it's just the kids being home. They're during the summer. It's tough. So
yeah,
never find time.
I feel you. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can keep my nose above water, I'm like, that's
just
that's surviving. You know what I mean?
some breathing holes.
Right? If you have a straw,
Yeah.
That's how it feels.
that's how it feels. Except the
It's
water's
like
very
the,
hot. It's not cold water.
It's not water. It's just the sweat from all the humidity here. It's just piling up. Yeah.
It's like the Radiohead No Surprises video.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, if you're watching this at home, you can Google it.
You're giving us homework. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about, and we've discussed it a little bit, but just like things that maybe are challenging us a little bit. Could be technical, could be more in your head, like mindset related. But I'd say anybody want to kind of start there? We don't have to go in the rotation.
You want them alphabetical or chronological? I mean,
yeah. How much time do you have, Lee?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, clearly,
like a therapist.
Clearly, time is always an issue, but
yeah,
I mean, it never stops. And I joke about this on Instagram. I always crack up when I see. Not so much tattoo artists, but artists, they'll say, books closed. And I'm like, my books are never closed. I mean, I need the commissions. I need, I have another job, but like, I have a house, I have kids, you know what I mean? It's not a matter of, well, I'm not taking clients. It's like, well, look, can you wait till September? You know what I mean? Like, cause I can't do anything until then. You know what I mean? There's never enough time. There's never enough time. And for me, 99% of the time, clients are cool. As long as you keep them updated, they're usually pretty good. I have it a couple times, be like, man, it's just life's been kind of weird. There's a lot of things been going on. It's going to take a little bit longer. They're like, that's totally cool. You know what I mean? That's fine. Half the time the bands are still recording the album, and they have their own issues, like, actually, well, someone quit the band, so we have to re-record everything, so you got 6 more months. I was like, okay, great. That's also, good news for me. I'm like, oh, that sucks. And I'm like, yes. Like, yes. But, every once in a while, I always have to kind of reiterate to some, not all, but some clients, like, this stuff kind of takes a bit. You know what I mean? It's like I can't get this out in like a week. This is gonna, even if I started. It would be great.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I kind of miss the shirt designs because I could like turn them around. It feels like I got something done. The album covers, I just have not. I've not this entire year. No matter how much stuff I actually finish, I never feel like I finish anything. It just feels like I'm always in the middle of everything I'm doing.
I think also with the shirt design stuff too, because it's a shirt, like it feels lower stakes as far as like what people are willing to accept. So like I feel like they're not as like picky. They'll be like, oh yeah, like we hit you up because we like what you do, so like go for it. Whereas with an album, like that is the thing that like,
big deal.
That like is the first impression.
Yeah, and a lot of times
like,
I'm gonna say, like, a lot of times my clients will literally send like a drawing, like.
Oh no, I know. I literally never work with anybody who does that.
I see.
I love it. I love it.
I like the challenge of that. I love taking something that is like stick figures that they've put, stick figures, and like they've drawn like an evil smiley face on it. Like, this is an evil guy, Like, I love taking that stuff and trying to turn it into something. But holy cow, does it take a while to turn it into something? You know what I mean?
I take it back. I did work with one band that did that, but the drawing, like the piece, didn't end up anything like the drawing that they sent me. So.
But the reason why I say I like when they do that is because when they do, I think one of the hardest things with a lot of clients is they're a little timid to tell what they actually want. Like they'll be like, look, well, we really don't care. We just want, a badass warrior standing there, which basically everybody just wants the Eternal Champion cover redone. And it's like, okay. And so then I'll paint it, and then it's like halfway through, they're like, well, it'd be kind of cool if he had like a wolf. And it's like, okay. And then it's like, well, we're thinking about it. And what if like behind him, and it's like,
an army.
You could have just told me, yeah, right. An army of different animals with anatomy that you don't know how to paint.
This is where working in water-based media is actually quite helpful, because you can.
Oh, totally.
Sorry, this is gouache. You're stuck.
Yeah,
you're done. This is what's happening.
There.
That's always fun when that happens, and that's why one of the reasons I stopped doing logos. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Same thing.
I will say with people that that like show up with sketches, for the most part, I find that like the handful of times that I've gotten a sketch is somebody who shows up and like it's almost like they've never looked at my work. So like they'll give me a sketch and I'm like, why are you coming to me with this? Like, no offense, but like, what in my portfolio made you think that this would be?
I think that's an issue in general.
Yeah, for sure. And I think on
it's like, why are you coming to me for this? It's like,
yeah. I mean, and I think on some level with that too, it's like, if you are a musician who can like play sheet music in a variety of different styles, that's different. Like that you're kind of more of like a Swiss Army knife of a person at that point. Whereas like, I think if you are a graphic artist, there are certain people, of course, who can kind of like do whatever. But like, if you're a graphic artist who is working within an idiom that is sort of like your voice, that's kind of what like the skill set that you've developed. So if somebody comes up to you and has like something totally different that's like not anything that you've done before, there's like prep work that needs to happen. It's kind of like if you were somebody who was like a coloratura, like operatic soprano, and someone came to you and was like, here's this jazz song, you would have to be like, cool, but I need to like do some retraining.
Good point.
Yeah. What I usually tell clients when that happens, well, they'll say, well, we want it to look like, Boris or Julie Bell or something. I'll be like, look, I'll try. It's going to look like what I paint. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of, you could tell me that. Yeah, sure. Can you paint me an alligator? Okay, but it's going to look like an alligator that I would paint. You know what I mean? It's not. It's not
like,
gonna.
what bodybuilders do I take a picture for reference?
Don't tell them that. No. Take a picture.
I was gonna say, Jerry, to your point about not doing logos. Like I refuse to do logos anymore as well, because it seems like clients only know what they don't want after you do it. That's the thing that it's like takes for fucking ever, because they can't tell you what they do want, only what they don't want after you've done it.
I tell them straight up. I was like, look, what do you want it to look like? Just give me the bands that you want it to look like. I'll make it look different. But if you want it to look like, I don't know, Celtic Frost, just tell me, because then it's like, okay, I know where I'm at. Or you want it to look like,
But also, why do you want it to look like Celtic Frost? There's already a Celtic Frost logo.
It makes my job easier.
Like your own shit. Like,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Totally.
Eternal struggle.
Yeah,
like, you want something that looks like something else. The something else already exists.
I'm with you.
That's what they'll say. They'll be like, well, we want it to look like this, and then you make it, and they're like, well, it looks too much like that.
Yeah, that's I will say that like this is not a problem that I tend to run into for the most part, but that's only because I usually say no before it gets to
that. That's what I'm saying. Like,
because I have a 40-hour-a-week day job that has nothing to do with it. It's all spreadsheets. Like,
I pretty much.
I have a bunch of friends of mine that I'll say, look, just contact these people.
Exactly. You've got your like list of people that you send other people.
They're gonna knock it out of the park for you 1,000 times more than I will.
Yeah. Or they're gonna see your proposal.
Yeah. Well, no, I've done that, and I've secretly emailed them and be like,
don't
you don't want these people.
Don't do it.
I recommended you, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I wouldn't. That's happened a couple times.
Don't take the job.
don't do
it. The other hard no for a logo is when it's like clear that what they want is a typographer and not a hand logo. You're like, I am not a graphic designer. I don't do typography, so you might want to.
Typography is also fucking hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Illustrator. I don't like being on the computer. I had a job I had a spreadsheet job for a long time, and I don't like the computer anymore because of it.
I will say that all the logo talk is reminding me that Steven Wilson, who goes by Unknown Relic, does the prettiest logos. So if you're watching this and you're like, I want a logo, Steven Wilson. He's a sweet angel.
Not anyone here.
Good. He just redid the Woe logo. So Woe is doing a new album, and Chris was looking for somebody to like reinterpret the old logo, and Steven like fucking knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I saw that.
That logo looks pretty cool.
It's beautiful. Like he knew, anyway. And like he's done like a shitload of other like gorgeous logos that like don't look like anything else, and they're all like instantly identifiable. And anyway, people are awesome that do art.
And going back, Lucas, you had said something I think is really important, where especially with album covers, where you never feel like you're done. I remember hearing a quote by Scorsese that said he never finishes a movie, he just stops. It was just like he said, like if I just kept going, I would never stop filming. It would just constantly be filming and editing. And
it's the Rauschenberg said the same thing. When is the painting done? What's up?
Did he say the thing about abandoning?
No, Rauschenberg. Someone asked him point blank when a painting is done, and he said when it's due.
Yeah.
It's like when he's got to turn it over for the show. Like
when do you need this thing by? Tomorrow? Well, here it is.
I can't remember who said it, but somebody else had another pithy thing, because obviously this is a sentiment that gets echoed a lot. But somebody else was like, I don't finish things, I just abandon them.
Yeah,
it's true.
Like,
I've heard
it's true. Right. And it's also a lot of times, I think clients don't realize that there can be too much going on in a painting.
Oh yeah.
Where it's you keep adding things.
More is more.
Yeah, well, it starts to blur and blend, and I mean the secret again. I'm acrylic based because I use ink. I mean technically I can change things. It's actually not that difficult to add and take away, but like I don't want people to get too comfortable with that idea because. While it's possible, I don't want to do
the rest of everything else to make it work.
Totally.
Like
because it's a whole composition.
It's not like it's not like fucking Legos. Like you can't just like.
Yeah.
But on the other end, I'm seeing it more and more, and I don't want to open this, but I mean, anytime you go to iTunes or Apple and you go into new releases, I could tell you there's going to be 2 or 3 that are already AI art.
Oh yeah, no, and it's garbage, and you can.
It looks terrible. I mean, it all looks the same, and it's always shocking coming from musicians.
It's not.
Like you're artists, so you should kind of know.
Like half the time, it's the musician. It's not the musicians though. Half the time, it's like the labels. The number of like.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, like there are artists who are like musicians who do AI cover art, but like they're also the bands that like. No offense, but they're the bands where like the songwriting is of the caliber that I would expect them to think that AI art is cool. So like all that they're doing is telling me that I don't need to bother listening to the fucking record.
Yeah, I don't. If I see it, I'm automatically skipping their shit. Like, come on, that's crap.
But also not an issue that I've had to run into because all of my friends are like, "Why would I do that? That's lame. All you're doing is telling people that you have no taste." Yeah.
I feel like it. I mean, I still think about AI art periodically, but it was very, very hot in my mind like 3 months ago, and it started to kind of like start to seep out. I don't really think about it quite as much as I used to. But
yeah, I mean, it's basically just a glorified search engine that's like a plagiarizing search engine that just kind of smashes a bunch of shit together.
Oh, I mean,
like it does more than that, and like I know people are using it as like a generative tool for certain things, but. Like,
I mean, my take on it is the same with a lot of the like kind of tech quote unquote tech innovations, and specifically anything that's like artificial intelligence. It's all like none of it really has to work because it's mostly just a convincing destination for investment money. That's like kind of the whole point of it. It's just to get like, yeah, you can invest your money in this startup because we're totally doing AI this. And it's like, I mean, anyone who puts too much money into that is going to get made whole anyway. So it's kind of it's a win-win situation. You know what I mean for investors in the tech sector. So
it's like it's complete brain rot. Like the number of times I've heard like day job shit about like AI, where I'm like, you're asking this question, but you don't actually know why you're asking for AI in this specific circumstance. But it's funny because when I was looking for some of the Jenny Saville paintings that I pulled, I saw a couple of image results that were like somebody trying to train an AI on Jenny Saville paintings, and it just looks like dog shit. It's so funny. Which like, you'll look at the paintings and you'll be like, okay, like there's no way like you could train an AI on this. This is such like meaty, fleshy, like
there's too much humanity in it.
Juicy shit.
Most of the AI stuff I see for metal bands just ends up looking like a Lewandowski painting.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
or
everything kind of looks
like they're training it. Like
So it's like okay.
Fairness, like there's a lot of people doing Buczynski clone shit anyway, so like,
totally. But I mean, again, in the world of metal, it's kind of always been like that. There's always there was the Ed Ripka, and then everyone copied, that kind of thing, and then you had Seagraves, and people copy Seagraves, and then when you had Travis Smith and his digital collage, and then everyone was doing that. And now everything it looks like that, and it's funny because you see the underground bands doing it, and then no offense to Obituary because I like Obituary, but like then they have like a Lewandowski painting, and I'm like, guys, this doesn't fit you at all. Like, come on,
because like I see that happen, yes, but also I give metal a lot more credit as far as like their willingness to take risks.
Sure.
I mean, like, I have people who will come to me and, like, I'm not... there is literally no other genre of music where I think, like, people would actually let me do the nasty, disgusting shit that I want to do.
Fair enough, yeah.
So, like, on that level, I have to be like, okay, like, I love you metal forever because you guys are willing to take weird, bizarre risks with your art on stuff. Like, of course, there are the people who want, like... And I think... Lee heard me repeat the phrase "skulls and titties" like 19 times during our initial one.
Hey, that's my bread and butter.
There's a genre
Watch what you're saying.
And like that's great. But also, like there are people who want stuff outside of that within metal as well, and so like
they don't talk to me.
Where to find all of that stuff? Like that's you can go to the people who can do the skulls and titties really well. For instance, Mr. Wyrmwalk.
Appreciate
you can also like I don't know, like it's one of those things where like on some level there's like a whole spectrum of like weird ass artists doing all sorts of crazy shit, and it's kind of only in metal as far as I can tell for the most part for like a lot of album art stuff or like shirts and stuff like that, and like metal and metal adjacent underground stuff.
Like
it's cool.
It is a remarkably visual like genre, and it is unique for that reason in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Mark? Anything been challenging you?
As usual, time. Well, I mean, my kids are off from school for the summer, so my wife and I definitely have our hands full with them. It's definitely been harder to keep up. It's easier when they're in school because they tend to be a little bit more worn down when they get home. My son has special needs. He's so he's a little bit extra work, which is fine, but definitely requires a lot of our attention as parents. So I mean it's definitely harder to find time. It's usually like late at night or like 15-minute increments. I might work on something, but I'm like I said, I'm kind of keeping my head above water. So
how old are your kids?
Just the nostrils.
15 and 12.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep us busy.
What about you, Jerry?
What's that?
How old are your kids?
12 and 9.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with kids, when they get older, certain things become easier, other things become harder.
Yep.
My daughter likes horror movies and buying collectibles. So, yeah. We go to horror conventions and things like that and go to toy stores, and my son's really, baseball and all kinds of stuff like that, and the whole family watches wrestling. So there's a lot going on. But yeah, it is. Let me tell you something. Kids are great, but man, they take up a lot of time.
Yep.
they really do. You know what I mean? It just is, and I'm sure I did for my parents as well. I mean, I grew up in the sticks. I couldn't get to the comic book shop walking. You know what I mean? Someone had to drive me. So I feel that it is tough in the summer. It really is tough in the summer, but you just got to figure it out. I'm with you.
Who else has been kind of challenged or kind of struggling with something?
Oh my God, like always.
Yeah, what you got, Caroline?
I don't know, just like everybody describes, there's always time. I think also like just being a human being right now is especially exhausting. Just like constant barrage of just bullshit, sweaty weather.
Really,
I don't know, like, but also like, yeah, I think there is that sort of like balancing the ways that you make your living versus the ways that you express yourself can be a real big challenge. Because I mean, like for me, it's the job, like day job balance with the art stuff, but then balancing the art stuff with like, do I have any time for commission work? And then like on top of that, do you have any time to actually like play and experiment? Like Lucas is talking about like trying new media and like how you don't want to just like jump into that with like a project for somebody. But you do kind of like need to make the space to actually like play with that stuff. Like I someone I know just did like a show of works where they were all in egg tempera.
Wow.
And I was like, ooh, and she was like, come to the dark side, learn egg tempera. And I was just like, I want to so badly, and yet like
Yes.
So it's at this point now I'm like finding like within my schedule, like how do I build out time? Like how do I like also making sure that you just like show up is hard sometimes. I don't know. I mean, like I can't speak for anyone else here, but like I'm not making this art because I'm terribly well adjusted. Like so I have my off days where I'm tired and I'm sad, and like figuring out how to remind yourself to show up because it helps you feel better is great, but like sometimes you just don't get there.
Yeah. And people like to talk about or like to kind of glorify the tormented artist.
And it's bullshit.
Yeah, the reality is if you got shit going on, you're just not making art. Like it's just not happening.
No. It's if you are making art as a depressed person, it is in spite of the depression or whatever the mental shit you have going on. It's not because of, like, you can make it informed by those experiences, but like if there are days when I don't want to like get out of bed in the morning, like that's not gonna exactly like motivate me to show up and like draw my little pictures.
It's also not something. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
No, you're good. I can remind myself that it makes me feel better, but like also, everything you do that day is about like getting through the day, which sounds really melodramatic, but like it's like as a human being living right now, everything you do, it's like all the little things that you have to do to like function and actually get through your day. And then by the time you get to the end of the day, like, what is that? Like, so just making my peace with like Mark said, like the 15 minutes, if I can get 15 minutes, then like, that is something that did at least happen that day. Like, that's good.
Totally. It's also not something that you can just like do. It took my wife a while to like kind of get that. She'd be like, all right, I take the kids, go up and paint. It's like, okay. Like what? Like
yeah. I mean, like on the one hand, like I agree with that on some level because like you can be really blocked.
Yeah.
But also on the other hand, like the showing up of it is its own separate side of things, because people will talk about like getting inspiration or like waiting for inspiration, and like fuck that, you can't wait for inspiration because then by the time inspiration shows up, you can't draw. Like you're not.
That's something, Caroline, that I've had to kind of learn that it's like, all right. I don't know but I have this time. like my kids are doing whatever. I have like an hour, I have 2 hours. I'm just gonna start painting.
Yeah.
On this thing, and maybe it'll work out, and sometimes hopefully it does. And there's times I'm just like, man, what the hell did I just do for an hour? I'm gonna be painting over this tomorrow, but at least I did something.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that like so I've been doing we talked about this and there were a couple of pictures, but like I've been doing figure drawing stuff because one of my studio neighbors has been hosting figure drawing nights, and like that is as close to like play and like mindfulness meditation as I can get, because one, I have to show up, but two, I'm there. The model's in front of you. You have a limited amount of time. You are like racing to get the shit down. You're working with what somebody else referred to as a moving target, because like the model's never going to stay perfectly still. So you have to like kind of be like, okay, like I'm drawing the hand during this 20 minutes chunk because the next 20 minutes, it's going to be slightly off in a way that I am not going to be able to do. So like I have to get it done in this amount of time. And there's just like no room for the other thoughts.
Yeah, it's focused. You're very focused.
It's beautiful though. Like, so that is nice because I've actually like also seen just like when I'm blocking something in for something else personally now, I'm just like, oh, this takes me way less time and I don't have to correct it as much.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is nice.
What about you, Lucas?
I mean, yeah, I think I would probably echo a lot of what everyone else said. Time is constantly an issue. Being a human being is constantly an issue. I feel like every day I ask my partner Alex, why is it like this? Why the fuck is it like this? What the hell is what is this? What is going on? You know,
does it ever stop?
Yeah, no, it's never stop. I think I'm the only one who right now I am by choice don't have a day job. I am just trying to do this, and I don't recommend it.
I know, but
right now I don't recommend it. I am definitely going to be updating my CV to pick up a few adjunct classes next year because it's financially not been great.
Neither's being an adjunct.
I was going to say, like, and the fact that you're saying adjunct, as like,
yeah. So but you know, it's like my days. I get up and like whatever might be on my mind. I'm like, I've got this and this and this to get done in the studio today for sure. Like I always try to have like a little bullet list of, okay, if I at least get these things done, then I won't be swamped with self-recrimination this evening, you know, which is my kind of usual routine.
That's why I swim in.
Yeah. It's an ocean of self-recrimination all the time. I guess like time is a thing I'm struggling with. Like shutting off has been kind of a thing too. Like we were kind of talking about inspiration, and you know, inspiration loves to come to me at about 3:00 in the morning. That's like I will have a like this week for some reason I've had a couple of really bad nightmares that have like woken me up from a dead sleep, and then fine, but like I'm not. My brain's like now like. So now you're going to think about some really cool drawings you want to do, and you should be in bed. But my brain is like, no. You've got these really note these down. You better get your phone out and note these down because you're going to forget. You're going to forget in the morning. It's like, goddamn. So it doesn't seem to ever line up where I'm like, oh, I have time and I'm in the studio and my brain now has ideas. No, it's like I don't have time. I'm not in the studio, and this is when my brain wants to come up with things and get really excited. When I'm in the studio, oh god, all right, I really need to fucking be done with this today, you know, because if I paint another stroke, I'm gonna throw up, you know.
How coherent are your 3 a.m. notes?
Because I'm an incredibly light sleeper. Sleep is sleep is something that sleep and I don't necessarily get along real well. So yeah, they're overly coherent because I am basically wide awake. I'm generally just wide awake. If someone's car backfires, I am wide awake for the rest of the night. So yeah, that's been a struggle. Is like just to shut off and like make myself sleep. Sometimes does not come naturally to me.
Podcasts.
And yeah, like I said, like doing mostly album covers. The big thing that I've kind of struggled with is yeah, the paydays are bigger, but they're a lot fewer and far between. And that's been like a thing that I've had trouble with adjusting to. Is at least when I had mostly shirt designs, it was a pretty steady flow of income. Also, when I was working on the book for Kelsey, like she would pay me every time I finished something and turned it in, which was really great because I could depend on, I had a list of stuff to do and I could depend on that money. If I finish something for the book this week, I can get paid for it. But now I'm like looking at, I've got these album covers that'll be the next 6 weeks. It's going to be 6 weeks of nothing. Like I got to figure out how to make it through that 6 weeks. So I think part of it,
the pro of that though, I totally understand what you're saying. The pro of it though is for the most part, exposure wise, it's a lot bigger.
Oh yeah.
From recognition, and now it's not always 100%, but I'm just saying, I'm with you. The few and far between, the increase in scale for paying isn't that. I mean, it is obviously, but it's not like you're not multiplying it by 5. You know what I mean? It's but I guess the positive side to it is that it does reach more people. It's more recognition to it.
Longer shelf life too.
And not to nerd out, you know, you guys are talking about all these famous, amazing artists and all that. I mean, I know some of them, not all of them, but most of the artists that I knew were, you know, Michael Whelan because he painted album covers, Seagraves because he painted album covers. That's what I was a nerdy kid sitting in my room in cornfields, just not in the cornfields, next to the cornfields, just looking at these albums. And these were the artists, you know. Derek Riggs was my hero, you know. It was like, so when I paint an album cover, like, yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but it's like, you know what? Maybe someone's going to be staring at it while they're listening to it the way that I did, and that's kind of freaky, but like really kind of cool.
No, I found when my mom moved, I was like helping clean out my old childhood bedroom, and I found this like little notebook where when I was a senior in high school, I was like writing down top 5 lists because we'd all seen High Fidelity and thought we were very cool. But I had like top 5.
No comment.
It's fine. We're gonna move on. I wrote down like a list of like the top 5 things I wanted to be, and like I found this like a couple of years, like 6 years ago at this point, 5 to 6 years ago, and like one of the things on the list was I was like, oh, album artist, and I was like,
nice.
Okay, like I'm not doing it full time, but like still, like fuck yeah.
I mean, and the thing is too, I suspect like part of my problem is like I don't have any merchandise to sell like of my own. And that could like fill in the gaps if I had that shit. So that's also been the other thing. I think we talked about this way back at the beginning of the year. I've been trying to like carve out time to make my own shit, and I have. And that's the other thing is like I also don't know when to stop. So I'm like, well, when is enough of my own shit enough that I should probably just print a shirt? I have probably too much stuff that I've been sitting on, but it's gonna happen. Like that's the next thing. Like,
and then you have to deal with like distribution and like how you're marketing it and printing it and like whether you're handling it or whether like and anyway.
Yeah,
it's why I don't do prints.
Great.
You know, I mean, technically speaking, it's passive income, and I've talked to some people who have done it. They use, I believe, Imprint is the website that they really like. But I mean, shelling out the money to get the prints. Yeah, that's the other thing. But I mean, you shell out all that money for prints, and then man, you gotta like hustle to sell them.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know if it's worth the time. Yeah, that for me it wasn't. And I was a kid because people say that people always tell you. So for the listeners and the viewers, I apologize. People always say, "Oh, do you have prints? I would totally buy one." I'll be honest with you, no, you wouldn't. Because
there's no way that you guys haven't seen the meme that's where it's like a pie chart or it's like 2 circles.
Oh yeah,
like people who buy the print or people who ask if you have prints and then like people who buy the print.
Oh yeah, it's like that.
Like it's a Venn diagram technically, but there's no overlap.
yeah. They're mutually exclusive.
Or it's, or it's a tangent circle. There's a tangent point. Yeah,
it's very small.
There's one tiny circle that's very small, and then there's a big circle, and I think that there is actually like a tangent point. So like technically, there's probably like a 1.
And I get it. You know what I mean? Even prints aren't cheap, and I'm sure they meant it that they would, but then things happen. They don't have the money, but it just got to the point. It's like this is a waste of my time and money. So you know what? Just like no, you can buy the original. If not, I'm moving on. You know, and it's
brings up a thing that I'm kind of, I wouldn't say struggling with, but I've just been thinking about too, is like giving the right amount of shit about social media. Because if you don't care at all, you don't post.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have that problem. And then if you care too much, it's like, it's just, you're focusing on the wrong things. You're not focusing on the craft. You're not focusing on improving. It's just like a giant song and dance. So
well, you've seen my social media.
Also with the launch of
yeah, I know you don't post
too,
much. Why do you do wrestling
like,
stuff?
It's
true.
There is like a bare minimum like cost of doing business to it on the one hand, but on the other, like it's, I don't know, like the way that social media responds to your work is fully disconnected from the quality of the work. And I also like I've seen people make stuff because of like what does well on social media, and then you just get like this like the most substanceless shit. Like
it's a fact.
I mean, with the exception, I did have a friend who is a photographer who was doing a lot of like figure photography, and like she basically decided she was going to start photographing people in such a way where like Instagram wouldn't be able to tell what it was looking at, which was really cool. But like that was more of like a dialogue with like censorship, and it was more of like a high-minded, weird, awesome thing. But like, you know, then there are people who like just make stuff that like does well on social media, and like I don't know. I mean, like Lucas and I have talked about this separately because I'm on Threads and Lucas is not, and Threads is terrible and don't do it. But there's like a narrow
Thank you for the warning.
Well, there's like a narrow window of like before the platform gets monetized that like I've just seen, and I'm fully guilty of this. I'm just kind of like throwing myself through that narrow window to get like reach to an audience that like everything else has been throttled to shit. So, you know, like I'm there until it's bad. And then
social media is an animal, especially when it comes to promoting anything. There's so many people promoting things in general. I use Instagram purely just as a portfolio. And as a way to do business contacts. And of course, like I said, follow me on social media. All my stories are just me rambling about wrestling, or just things that never take anything I say that seriously. I'm probably pissed off that I had to wait in line too long at the supermarket, and so I'll complain about that. But I mean, some people it's like a lifestyle, and I always tell them, look, I think I've got 5,000-6,000 followers. But I'm gainfully employed. You know what I mean? So, I don't have, man, you should have more followers. You should have like 40,000, 50,000 followers. Like, what? I really don't care. I mean, I'm still getting messages to do work.
Yeah.
Well,
what do I care?
It's a toxic thing in general. And like I say, this is someone who is absolutely way too online, like way too online.
That's how you know.
But it's also like you develop, or people will develop these like parasocial relationships with the people that they're actually like looking at on social media and like the work and stuff like that. And like on some level too, like what the platform prioritizes in response to, like I know that if I put my face on my feed, it does better. But also then like it just cheapens like the work itself. And so like there's like a really gross balance that it just like social media doesn't feel good. There's literally nothing about it that feels good, except that like you get to occasionally like talk to cool people. Like I get to talk to Lucas. That's fucking awesome. That's cool. Like I've gotten to like meet very cool artists, and like that I truly like am genuinely grateful for that. And I get to see a bunch of art, and I get to like learn from like other people's processes. Like Lucas, you were talking about like oil painting and stuff like that, and like process and stuff like that. And I have a list of people that I am sending you after this, where it's like, all right, here's how they're approaching oil painting, and like it looks crazy, and might drive you slightly less insane.
Right. Well, I'd be grateful for that.
But yeah, like Adrian Cox, for instance, like shows like
I followed
his
him.
process is
years.
great, but he's doing like the true like glazing. So he does like a full detailed grisaille, and then he does glazing layers of color in order to get everything kind of up. But he's also making like little maquettes because he's insane.
Yeah,
but it's so cool.
Yeah, his process is pretty nuts.
It's gorgeous though, and
his
stuff in person, like it looks so cool. Like there's so much luminosity. Like it's not even. Anyway. Yeah, social media, it's a cancer.
Well, I'm looking at the time.
It's like social media can't live with it. Can't live
without it. It's a fact.
I mean, you absolutely can live without it. Many people live without it. Many people can't.
I'm saying like.
But what would I do when I'm waiting too long in line at the grocery store? That's the problem.
All right, let's do more rapid fire for the last question before we go to the artists. Just like round the table, what's one thing you're happy with in terms of your art right now? You can think for a second.
I'll start.
Yeah. All right.
I'm happy that I'm making it.
I like that.
You know, I'm still intact, basically. You know, and still above ground. So I'm happy that I'm making it. Like there are worse alternatives.
Yeah, like Lucas, definitely that. And I've been in like a very stuck place for a bit, and I'm starting to feel like I'm potentially unsticking myself. So that's exciting. Yeah,
I'm happy that people seem to like the stuff I do. I mean, that's gratifying. You know,
because it's fucking sick, dude.
My like Asian upbringing, I can never agree that you know, the most I'll ever say is it's not bad.
Yeah, but like also I read the Philip Guston biography that his daughter wrote, and it was like very validating to like see his daughter be like, yeah, at the height of his career, like he had this like crazy successful art opening, and everyone was like, oh, like how do you feel about this? How great is this? And he was just like, I hated everything that I just did. Is like so like I'm so far beyond that already. Like what I just put out there is just bad, and like my work has moved so far beyond that. And I'm like, okay, like, all right, I can breathe a little easier.
Yeah. All I can see are the mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
everybody, I think if you are maybe not everybody, but like I think if you're not looking at your work with a critical eye, you might as well just fucking quit.
Right. I'm saying like I'm here able to make mistakes, and I'm still getting paid for it. So you know what? Can't really complain.
I think for me, something I'm happy with. I think it kind of goes into your point too, Caroline, with like the figure studies. Is I feel like I'm getting faster because when I do end up creating stuff from imagination, I'm basing it more off of what I've studied in the real world and like just drawing horses and people and stuff. So I think I'm getting better at being faster, which is going to be very important as I'm trying to ramp up a little more in terms of my portfolio. So that's something I'm happy with. What about you, Jerry?
I'm happy people aren't sick of me, and they still want me to paint things. No, I mean, yeah, no, but on a more serious thing, I've noticed in the past few months. I'm extremely critical, obviously, like everyone who does anything. But I've been able to at least look at stuff I painted like a year ago and be like, yeah, it's actually not as bad as maybe I thought it was 6 months ago.
That's a huge victory.
Yeah, like normally I was like, what the fuck is this? Like this is terrible. But now I'm like, yeah, it's actually not that bad. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I would do it differently now, and I'd probably do it better. But it's pretty good, it's that kind of thing. So
yeah, I usually need about a year. I look at it about
I think a year is good.
I will be like my highest compliment is, it's not as bad as I thought it was.
So it's just, because within like a couple months you're like, nah, it's pretty terrible. They bought that, okay. But then it's like a year later, it's like, yeah, I can see why. Yeah, it was worth the money.
Well, like the exciting thing sometimes too is when you look back at your stuff from like a year ago, and like not only are you not mad about it, but you're like, oh yeah, there were some ideas in there that like I haven't really gotten to keep running with. That would be like fun to go back to those. Like that's like the ideal for me right now, is that like I'm looking at some of my old work and I'm like, oh shit, like I really want to like keep moving with some of that, some of the ideas that I started kind of picking apart in that one.
Yeah, totally.
I'm gonna do exactly what Mark just did, and I'm gonna grab some water.
Yeah, please.
I'll be right back.
All right, Pete.
Mark,
You did the opposite.
so what's something that you're like happy with in terms of your work? Like we were talking in April, you were painting a little bit more than usual. Is that been going well?
I did. I finished that painting.
Nice.
It's for a customer, and it's funny because it's like one of those things where you guys talk about, oh, you have some time to, you might want to carve out some time to fool around with the medium first. I just went straight in.
Nice.
Because I know I don't have the time to like fool around with it. I figured if I mess up, it's acrylic. I can just paint over it. It's not a big deal. So I just wrapped that up literally today.
Nice.
And, got to try to go. That's why I brought up the Staples thing. I figured maybe I could go there to get it scanned. But then I'll probably have another full color painting to work on maybe for next year as well, which is cool. So it's fun like to be able to fool around with something a little bit out of the box. But otherwise, I have to echo Lucas's sentiment about I'm happy to be alive and to be illustrating still. That's something that it's like a necessity. I feel like it's a necessity, something that is so ingrained in who I am and what I do. It's just I have to do it every day. So I'm grateful for that, to be able to do it every day. So
I'm kind of grateful that like I will do this all week long, and then the weekend rolls around and I like still want to draw, which is kind of awesome. Like I worked on something today. It was like because I wanted to. It wasn't for a commission or anything. I just worked on it because I just want to see it finished. So I'm grateful for that. Like I don't in any way like I talk sometimes about being burned out, but it's more like burned out on having deadlines and things like that. I'm not burned out on drawing or making art. I still just want to do it all the time. So
facts.
I think probably the length of your artist list prior to narrowing stuff down probably speaks to that too. You just get like excited about art.
Yeah. I see stuff I'm like, man, I started like recently going through some of the art books I have, and if I've got like fiction books that are illustrated or whatever, I have started like laying a black sheet of paper down on a desk and photographing every single thing that I find is in kind of, it gets me jazzed basically, and just keeping it all in a folder now. So I don't have to look for it online. I'm like, I just photograph it in the book so I can see like it was in a book, and it made me feel really good. So
it's your morgue
I'm gonna look
file
at this later to remember what the feeling was, and it'll make me want to do something else. So
morgue file.
Yeah.
I think I came across that term because somebody used it in reference to how Jenny Saville approaches her work. Just like constant like magpie image collector kind of stuff, which is also I keep having to delete shit from my phone because I like won't get rid of the 80 something gigabytes of photos that I have on it.
Right. I have so many like screenshots of stuff too. I have
another.
I have like folders on my phone that will all be titled reference, and it's just screenshots of it's just screenshots of everything. I like follow like things like I follow like Tudor house accounts on Instagram because I just for looking at architecture. Because I'll just level with you. I find Tudor houses to be adorable, and I want to live in them. They're adorable.
So, when your band plays New York, do a little jaunt through Forest Hills.
There you go. Yeah, it'll swell my reference folder.
You will die of happiness.
Well,
I have an uncomfortable amount of reference photos of naked buff dudes for barbarians and things. I mean,
I think it's just the right amount of.
I mean, I'm with you, but I'm saying the average person probably looks at my phone and be like, hey, I didn't know you swung both ways. It's like I don't, but like,
sounds like an extreme.
I gotta appreciate it.
I would strongly recommend, and in the event of my untimely death, I would like everyone to burn my computer.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that goes without saying. But especially the references on my phone are very odd. They're very odd.
Yeah.
But again, it's mostly just dudes.
I have a lot of different things with facial injuries, like
Yeah.
It's a bit different. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that being an issue,
Mark.
sure.
I think for me, I'm ashamed of all the reference photos that I take of myself doing weird.
Oh,
Oh my God.
You know,
That's the
where
reason that my
shame is.
computer needs to be burned.
Yeah.
Oh, I did one of myself last night.
But
It's a lot of my reference photos are a lot of me like doing something with my hands, so I can like
Yep.
figure out.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
But it'll be like my face is like because I'm not I'm totally focusing on the hands.
That's what I should have sent you, Lee. The shitload of photos of myself holding things, and I'm like,
Well,
because
thumbnail. Everyone was send me the
it was.
reference.
I had to take like a shirtless full body, and this is weird like thing that's just stuck there. I don't know, but I'm not Frazetta. I don't have like a few people I can just hire to come over and take pictures of. Just gotta do yourself.
I mean, there is actually like I did a studio visit with somebody whose work is fucking awesome. His name's Matthew Brennan on Instagram. He goes by Shutter Slime. But he was talking about using, oh my God, his work is so good. But he was talking about using like models that he contacts around the world. Just like you can kind of like hire anybody for not that much to like send you photos. But I didn't really get the details on how he does that because I'm still working it out.
But at 11 p.m. at night, it's just me and the phone.
That's true. And going back to the concept of procrastination.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally.
So.
All right, gang. Let's get into talking about some of this art. So just a refresher for the viewers, it's basically art that, each of the panelists picked, just something that inspires them. Did a little bit of homework in terms of the artists and talking about them. And basically, just for all you guys, we'll let panelists speak first, then we'll just kind of open it up.